Resident Evil is one of the most influential survival horror franchises in history, but there was a time where RE almost lost its roots. Resident Evil 6 did a bit too much. I have great nostalgia for the game, but I cannot deny that RE6 was very far from its horror themes and gameplay from its predecessors. In 2017, we would get Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, a more traditional survival horror RE game, getting huge success and praises over the years. However, I have found in recent times, due to the other remakes coming out, getting reintroduced to iconic characters, some people on social media or other medias in general have started to not look at this Ethan era of Resident Evil in a great light. From thinking Ethan is a very bland and boring character, to missing some of the RE action from previous games, and not being a fan of the first-person camera perspective. I also feel Resident Evil Village also plays a part into both the RE7 and 8 hate. I wanted to make this video in defense of Resident Evil 7 and how this game was the clean slate the franchise needed. So let's enter the world of survival horror with Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. We begin the game as Ethan Winters, a normal citizen receiving a message from his supposed dead wife of 3 years, Mia, with the message simply saying, Dolby, Louisiana, Baker Farm, come get me. The opening of the game, we explored the guest house, a rundown mess, abandoned living quarters, looking for any signs of life or any signs of Mia. Finding a tape, we watched the fate of Clancy and his showmates' haunted house rehearsal disaster, and in this tape we find where to find a secret doorway that dwells deeper into the basement. We finally find Mia, but her mental and physical state are in a disarray, stating that she never sent any type of message to Ethan about picking her up. As we look for a way out with Mia, something attacks Mia, destroying a wall that Mia mentioned previously was a doorway. We go upstairs, have a look around, and head back downstairs, where Mia is no longer Mia. Attacking Ethan, we must defend ourselves as we supposedly dispatch of Mia, the woman we drove all the way out to come find. The phone rings. A mysterious voice tells us we can escape through the attic. We locate a fuse and put the power back on, where Mia is totally fine again, until she becomes crazy and proceeds to cut off our hand with a chainsaw. Yikes. Arriving at the attic, getting a handgun, we have another showdown with Mia. As we try and escape, we are attacked by Jack Baker and taken to the main house where the game fully begins. Resident Evil 7 is your traditional survival horror experience. Scarce ammo, healing, and supplies are very limited, so you're gonna need to make sure you manage your items well. This is something I've always associated with Resident Evil. I love having to think of what I need to store away for later, or if I should craft a healing item or ammo. I love the choice that limited supplies brings in a really weird way. And of course, you'll be doing your iconic RE puzzles or gathering key items, which is something I love doing, gets my brain going. Being able to backtrack to lock doors you previously could not enter always fills me with excitement and mystery. Of course, Ethan gets his own mini arsenal, from the standard handgun to shotgun and grenade launcher, classic RE weapons to deal with the molded, gooey, grotesque monsters that come in different shapes and sizes, or if Jack Baker is stalking you in the halls of the Baker Mansion and you need to give him a bit of a lights out so you can continue with your objectives. The atmosphere in RE7 is nothing but phenomenal. A huge standout in every Resident Evil title is the atmosphere, and the Baker residence is amazing. From the main Baker's houses, claustrophobic hallways, the old houses, abandoned decaying environment, and the boat's wet and rusted ruins. Every area is a standout, making you feel trapped and hopeless like classic RE games. RE7 ditched the fixed camera angles and third-person view for a first-person perspective, and I personally think this was a great idea. It allows us to fully take in the world of RE7. During the time of release of RE7, first-person horror games were kind of taking over. A title such as Outlast with its hide-and-seek horror was very popular, so you can kind of see some influences, but of course Capcom and Resident Evil did its own spin on the first-person perspective horror, making us, the player, feel like we were Ethan, which is really effective, especially for the time it came out. I do have to mention, I'm personally a lover of the fixed camera angles and third-person views for most of my RE games, but I love that they chose to do RE7 in first person. It helps it stand out so much, and I actually don't think this game would have been great in third person. We saw how Village was in third person, and that was clearly an afterthought. Going back to survival horror was needed. RE6 had hardly any scares or scary moments for me. A title like Resident Evil 4 perfectly balanced horror and action, which is great. So with RE7 going back to that classic survival horror plot, threshold, roots, it was desperately needed, especially introducing new fans and reintroducing fans into the horror elements and parts that has always been within Resident Evil. Ethan and Mia, the game's hero and heroine over the years, have not been fans' most favourite characters for different reasons. Ethan has often been described as bland, boring with no personality, but I personally like that Ethan is a simple character. We all think we would be kick-ass Leon or boulder-punching Chris in a situation like the events of RE7, but in truth, we would be like Ethan Winters, a regular guy finding himself in horrific situations with a crazy family trying to kill him. He is human with fears and scares. Ethan also being on the simpler personality fits well, since the developers wanted us to feel that we were going through the same horrors as Ethan. Mia is a complicated character. She is a victim, but also holds some responsibility for the horrors of RE7, being an agent on a handler job for the connections to transport the bioweapon that's Evelyn, with Evelyn infecting the whole ship and the Baker family. I always loved with Mia how she desperately tries to fight the infection. I also loved that us as the player and Ethan always had a feeling Mia knew more than she would let on. It made her quite a confusing and weirdly mysterious character. The Bakers don't need any defending. They're amazing characters and villains. They are the biggest part of the game. They are perfectly terrifying, scary with a little bit of camp. A great recipe for a great Resident Evil villain. I love you Bakers, I love the Baker families. Whenever people talk highly about RE7, the Bakers are always at the top. They're fantastic. Zoe as a character I definitely empathize with, being forced to flee her crazy family ever since Evelyn arrived at the house. Zoe will help Ethan a lot in the journey, giving him hints and tips, whether it's making the vaccine to cure them all or for certain key items to escape certain areas. And as we all know, you get the ultimate decision if you're going to cure Mia or Zoe. Obviously, if you go for the canon one, you choose Mia, and poor Zoe with despair and anger accepts her fate. I always love that decision between choosing Zoe or Mia in the game. No matter how many times I play the game, I always feel so bad for Zoe, and that choice will always be so impactful. Finally, seeing Chris Redfield at the end always still feels like a treat. Even though I'm not a huge fan of Chris's RE7 design, I love seeing him pop up, and his DLC where he catches and defeats Lucas once and for all felt like a great finale to this great game. Overall, Resident Evil 7 did a lot for the RE franchise, taking the series back to pure survival horror roots. Sacrifices and risks had needed to be taken for where the series is today. Whether you agree or disagree with my opinions, love or hate RE7, you can't deny the great effects Resident Evil 7 had on the franchise. And with the director of Resident Evil 7, Koshi Nakanishi, Koji directing the upcoming Resident Evil Requiem, I have no doubts the game will surprise us all and meet our expectations in a variety of ways.